Hey, travelers, it's Sparks Valentine here with
Erica Nerdy Yogi.
and
And Foxfires.
and welcome to Dice and Dish, the tabletop RPG roundtable discussion podcast, where the three of us are going along on travels, talking about three different topics every episode, and meet some interesting adventurers along the way that we bring into our silly discussions. So we really hope that you enjoy the episode and that you continue along the travel with us. So I guess we'll see you along the road. All right, Erica, roll that dice.
It is Foxfire.
Oh my goodness, of course it's mine. So, my topic is what makes an epic BBEG? So, in my opinion, one thing that's going to make the BBEG epic, introduce it early. Give your characters a taste of the BBEG. Let them see what's going on. Don't just end of campaign, here's BBEG. No, sprinkle it over your campaign. Let them see what the BBEG is doing. So, an example of this, in the campaign I'm currently running, slowly, and any of my players listening, tune out now. Slowly, they're seeing things that the BBEG is doing behind the scenes, and they're going to slowly realize that everything is connected to him. But I don't make that abundantly clear at the start, but they're slowly seeing it. So doing something like that can make the BBEG more epic because you're seeing its effects in the world. Or even the campaign I ran for the two of you and the rest of our group, you guys were seeing the changes that the BBEG was impacting the world with. That can make it much more epic. That's my suggestion. What do the two of you think?
Well, I think one of the best big bads is Strahd. I think that aesthetically it is important. I know that might sound trivial to some people, but I think that if you have a big bad that has a really cool aesthetic, can take it to a whole other level. Because you think about Strahd, right? You don't just think about the way Strahd looks. You think about like his characteristics, who he is. He's a fleshed out character. He has a backstory, and he has purpose in the world. It's not just like there is this golem who is there and there it is. Like, you, in my opinion, you almost have to think about your big bad as a character, as if you were going to play them, right? And flesh them out to be like, okay, well, why are they who they are? What made them? What are their flaws? What are their weaknesses? What are their bonds? Like, answering stuff like that will make them more compelling and not feel one-dimensional. I also think if you can make it personal to the players, one of the best examples I can think of for this is like if you have a player character who's like, they have a significant other, they have children, they have fill in blank for someone they love and care about. Well, if your big bad is ever present, ever watching, like Strahd, Strahd is forever watching. Strahd is seeing everything you do. So then Strahd knows who you are, right? But if you have a big bad that is not limited like Strahd is, because he's limited to the domain, right? Say you have a big bad who is ever present, ever watching. He finds out more about your character's loved ones. What happens in superhero movies? They target the loved ones. They use them as ways to manipulate the players. You can always use that in game as well, which will make it feel more personal, right? They kidnap your character's wife. Okay, we gotta go get the wife. You get the wife. Now it's like, I'm really gonna fucking kill you because you messed with my family. Kid, fill in blank, right? So it gives it a little bit more, but it's never the big bad that takes them. It's always the minions, right? You have to start, you can't be the big bad directly doing it, but it's behind is the big bad pulling the strings, because you don't want that moment of the big bad is there, right? And then it's like, oh, they took the wife and now the big bad is here. Now we do the final showdown and get my wife back. You need to build up to that final showdown. Let that, saving the wife, taking the wife back to the home, back and role play that opportunity, go through that, the trauma of it. How does it affect her? How does it affect the relationship? All that kind of stuff. If you're really into like role play dynamics with the, NPCs and all that. Unless you just want to gloss over it, you could always go it that way. But I think something like that, trying to make it personal in whatever way you can. Maybe they steal an actual character if one of your players is okay with it for a short period of time and then bring them back. Almost like if you play like Baldur's Gate 3 where you have encounters with Raphael, you have those small encounters with him. He's ever present. He's always there. He pops up, he talks to you a little bit, and he goes away. Stuff like that. Sparks, what do you think?
100%.
Yeah, I love that you use Strahd as an example because he is kind of like the perfect example of kind of an epic like big bad because like you said, he's like always present kind of in a way he knows what you're doing inside of his domain and everything, but it's also like his interactions with the group as well because when you run it you don't just meet Strahd at the end. Like you hear all about this, like, Strahd, and you hear all about it through the city and how he is the one that's keeping everybody there. He has total control over the town. Like he doesn't just let people say that about him. He like comes and fights. He's supposed to fight you, I think, like 5 or 6 times throughout your adventure. And every time you meet, like you fight a little bit, he gets a little hurt and then he leaves. He doesn't leave because he's afraid that you're going to kill him. He leaves because he's waiting. He wants that anticipation of, well, we fought him this time. We see a little bit of his strength, but what's going to happen whenever we meet him for the final time? He's going to know how we all fight. He's going to know how our party works as a group. And then once you get to certain parts in it, if you're currently playing through Strahd, you should totally skip through this part and not worry about and don't listen to the next maybe minute because I don't know how long this is going to last. But you get to the dinner and he's chosen one of you to be basically his new bride. Because that's his whole point of the group. Like when he's like messing around with the group, he's trying to find his perfect mate. Whether your character's a male or a female, it doesn't matter. It says that in the book. So it's like his whole point of coming and fucking with you throughout the entire thing is to figure out who's going to be compatible mate with him. Because he wants to bring his bride back because, she's dead as hell. And that's his way. Is he either tries to find you or get parts from you to bring her back or whatever. So it's like when you have somebody that's like that, like the building of that like big bad is like, okay, if you play it the way it's supposed to be played, he is definitely in the top tier of epic. Same thing of what Erica said though, like keeping it personal with the characters is another thing. I've always found it interesting in Dimension 20. In there, spoiler alert, it came out 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, however long freshman year came out. One of the characters, the big bad from the first season, actually was a corrupted god that one of the characters later swapped to follow as a cleric. Because in their world works, like gods can become corrupt, become crazy, and become darker versions of themselves, basically. Became the big bad that everybody knew about. They fixed her, and now she is okay, and she's a functioning god for one of the characters. So, like, whenever things start going bad again, it's like, well, if she became corrupt one time, is she going to become corrupt again and become the big bad again? So it's like you always have that of like, maybe your big bad turns good for a little bit, and then maybe there's just a snap. I always think something kind of like that would be interesting, where it's like you were bad before, but like you've turned a new leaf. Are you gonna stay good, or are you gonna go back to being bad? Because then it keeps that in your mind of like, well, they were bad once. What's gonna happen again? But I do think like keeping it personal with the characters is a great way to like make it more epic, because then it hits them harder. Like how Ergo was saying, like, you know, they like mess with their family, but like what if it is the character's family? It's a member of their family is the big bad, and they don't know it until, you know, so far into the story, and it's like, well, you know, they have this whole like, do I fight my family or do I not? And it could bring a lot of like role play potential into it of that too. So
Yeah, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be someone from their backstory. You could also introduce someone in the campaign who then later they find out is the one that's behind everything. I've seen that done. It's a little tricky to do because sometimes your PCs won't necessarily want to interact with that person, or they will immediately, this is the BBG.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, we haven't talked about like mechanics or even like the combat that, like, when it finally goes down with the BBG. I think that I'm always for layer actions, so
We
I'm always
know.
about like, you
We
know.
know.
But
Yes.
there are some instances, like depending on like layer actions is very much a 5e thing, but if you're playing something else, just making sure that you know your big bad is not just like a bag of hit points, making it to where the fight is dynamic, it is interesting. You know, it's just not like the big bad and a bunch of PCs and they just kind of like lump around them and, you know,
Yeah, make it
trade
interesting.
blows.
Give more options in combat. Like have minions, have big bads, because it's like, you know, the minions may not have that many hit points, but they may hit hard as hell.
Or I mean, even
And
using the minions to force conditions on
yeah,
players and waste resources, you know.
Yeah.
waste spell slots.
And
Mm-hmm.
well, and also like the big bad, depending on how powerful they are, like if they're like a dragon or something that actually can affect the environment around them, using that environment to their advantage because
Yeah.
it is their home, so they would know the places that offer them the best place to go toe to toe with a fight versus other places where the players would have advantage. So using that, you know, just throwing out like ways to make, if you're looking for combat more, because we've talked more about like who they are as a person, but doing your combat with them, you know, and also giving, if they're, you know, I like to make items for my big bads that are appealing to players, that it's like, oh well, you know, we know they have this really awesome sword, and it's like, you know, that could be a really great reward from a big bad if there's a really awesome artifact that they have. It's not corrupt or evil unless your players just want to go that route, but making sure the payoff is worth it.
Yeah.
Right, or it's like, and there's a reason why this big bad has to be taken down by your players versus, well, anybody could have really taken them down. Why does it have to be us? Like, answering that question, make them feel like it has to be them. That sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And I know you two touched on it already, but I would like to also say minions are vital to an epic boss fight. They are vital. And
For sure.
just as much as the actual BBEG. And the reason is, if you have 4 or even 3 people all ganging up on one person, it doesn't matter how many hit points that person has. It doesn't matter how powerful they are. They're going to go down in a round or two. Because unless you just ridiculously overpower them, your PCs are going to take them out all at once. But if they have minions to worry about as well, it's, do we focus on big guy and take them out quickly? Or do we focus on the little guys who are taking pot shots at us?
Yeah, and that's where you kind of get into probably like a different thing, but like your like parties, like not composition, your party tactics of like, are we gonna have somebody that's just gonna focus on the main boss and then the minions and everything? So, yeah, no, I think having minions is definitely a thing you should probably
But
do with the big bad.
Just trust me on that, because I threw a dragon at a level 10 party. Granted, there was 8 people in the party. I threw an adult dragon at them, not intending for them to win the fight. They melted it. Absolutely melted it. This thing was supposed to be way stronger than them. They took it out within a turn and a half. And I had to lie and say its HP was significantly higher.
I feel like there was some rolls that weren't, because for every single person to hit and to be able to deal that much damage depending on the magic items they had, and depending on what the party comp was, a round and a half seems very.
I could be exaggerating on that. It was
It
was my first time ever DMing.
Okay.
It was my first time ever DMing.
Okay.
I was gonna say, did it stay on the ground? Was it flying?
It was, so it only became a dragon. Okay, so it was a spellcaster originally.
Gotcha.
And I had it use Wish to become a dragon just to keep the fight going a little longer. Because first time DM mistake. I had one enemy versus the party of 8.
Yeah.
And even though that enemy was a 20th level enemy, I thought, okay, there's no way that they're going to be able to do much. No,
action economy is real.
Yes, no, they melted her. So
well, so like I once played in a big bag fight where there was talking about like objectives, right? It's like the objective isn't to just kill the big bad or kill the minions. It's like, okay, well, there's this that is causing an effect in the battlefield that we have to address, because if not, we're gonna, it's like, get fucked, right? So I was playing in a big bad situation to where it got to the point to where we were on these giant like pillars, hundreds of feet in the ground, and there was these portals that were on the pillars, and like we were having to go from pillar to pillar to pillar, so dynamic like terrain use there, multi-levels. Like the big bad I could teleport around, luckily, because that was part of my subclass, but other people could not do that. And the portals, they were basically, I would say they were portals that could suck you in. You did not willingly go in, so they were almost like little black holes. But the thing is they would suck you in, and then the portal it was almost like the Portal video game, right? You go through this portal, you come out that one. Well, the ones we were coming out were facing towards the ground, and the people would drop hundreds of feet to their death. So we had to deactivate the machine that was causing these rips in time and space to keep the portals from appearing on the pillars, because if the portal appeared on your pillar, everything on that pillar had to make a save, and if you didn't make the save, you get sucked through the portal, you get dumped, and it's like, cool, I have feather fall. Okay, awesome, but you can't get back in the fight. You might have feather fall, but you're falling for the rest of the fight. Hundreds and hundreds of feet. Unless you got fly, that's the only thing that's going to save you. Or teleport or something that you can pull off real quick. I'm pretty sure teleporting, unless you got like Dimension Door or Thunder Step or something like that, then that's all you got. And that's like me, I was lucky enough that my subclass allowed me to teleport around the battlefield. But I mean, it's kind of one of those things that if you can give them an obstacle that makes the fight even more of a hazard, and it's like, okay, we have to deal with the minions and the big bad and this objective. Because if we don't deal with the objective, then dealing with the big bad is impossible. It will make it even higher level of an encounter, in my opinion. All right, it is my topic. So feats. I'm pretty sure they have feats in Pathfinder. I'm not extensive knowledge of Pathfinder. I've only played it a handful of times, but feats, boons, buffs, to make PCs better, or just things that you like to use in your game that give them a little edge. I like to present these to players. Most of the time, I've never given a player a feat because they've done something, but I do like to introduce just like silly magical items that do give them a little bit of an extra boon, I guess you would say, that they normally wouldn't have. This isn't something that I made up. It's in one of the DCC annuals for Goodman Games. I can't remember if it's 2019. I know it's not the Gong Farmer Almanac of 2020, but I think it is the DCC Almanac. But there's a mustache, is what I say, a mustache. It's a mustache vendor, right? And I use Forever Glue, and like you can buy the mustache from the vendor, and depending on like how you roll on a chart, and there's also like you can pick out your style of mustache, and it gives you abilities, like something small. Like one of them that one of my players got is like if they twirl their mustache, then their jump is now an extra 15 feet. But they can only, there's like mustache points, and you can only use your mustache a certain amount of times a day. So it does limit them. It's not like a big boon, like something you would get in 5e if you've reached like 22nd level or whatever, if you're above 20th level. But I like to use little things like that to give them an edge, but it's something kind of fun in a way. It's not necessarily like a traditional boon, but that's something that I have done before that I thought was a lot of fun. What do y'all think?
I like your idea. I kind of do similar things. I try to give items. I usually try to ask my players, what abilities do you want your character to have? And going off what they tell me, I try to make or include items that would give similar to those abilities, if not those exact abilities. I am notorious for giving my players way too much power, though. So don't necessarily go by me. I overpower my people way too much. But I also, in my most recent, have tried allowing people to train for ability scores and feats. And side note, if you do that, make the experience points and or gain exceptionally high, because they are all extremely all the ones that have chosen to train in their downtime are all extremely overpowered. That is an option as well. Just tell them like, hey, I'll let you know when you have downtime. You'll be able to train. If you train, these are some of the things you can get. Items are the easiest way to do it.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna look something up real quick because I think there's a book. I want to think it's Matt Colville's that talks about training and how to like deal with stuff like that. Sparks, you talk.
See, I thought I did it really well. I was like, okay, I planned this out. No, I did not plan it out very well at all, because I have some players that every single downtime they are training. They are absolutely training. They're absolutely taking advantage of it. And then I've got a couple who on their downtime they want to role play, which they also get boons for role playing. It's just they get different ones.
I will say, coming from being mostly the player, I use feats a lot of the time, just because they're there to quote unquote make your character better, but sometimes I just feel like some of them work a little bit better for characters. Like if I play a spellcaster, I usually always take Eldritch Adept, so that way I can read everything, because I'll just take Eyes of the Runekeeper, because like I feel like if you're a spellcaster, there might be some spells that are like, you need to read, and you can like you could translate anything for that. A lot of the times whenever if I've ever played, when I play like a ranged character like a marksman or anything like that, I'll take Gunner, so that way you don't have to worry about reloading. So it's where you go back to that action economy. It's like, I don't want to spend a bonus action to reload or an action depending on, you know, like what you're using or whatever. Like sharpshooter, I'll usually always take that as a ranged character as well. So you have that higher damage output. I use telepathic for your game, Erica, when we played as the school for assassins. I was like, oh, well, telepathic works really well. So then you could have a conversation with somebody and never have to actually speak to them in person, like out in the open, so you could talk about plans and everything. So I think honestly, it depends on like what you're going for in the, like what kind of campaign you're going to play, what kind of character you want to do. Like, with the items giving you things, it's really interesting because then it goes on to, well, you have that like mindset of, well, if I get something else and I have to swap out, like, is me swapping out for this other item going to be worth it to lose this particular feature of that item? I've never really played in anything that I get a boon. We haven't really played in that tier of 5th edition to where you're getting boons from gods, because a lot of the times like your play stops before then. So it's like, if we did, it might have been in yours, Erica, where we got the 15th. I'm not sure if we all got one.
I never gave y'all a boon from the.
See, I didn't think so. Yeah, I was like, I
don't think we ever got a boon.
I'm trying to think to like all the games I've played in, and I'm like, have I ever gotten one? And I'm like, I don't think I have.
I can't remember what I was trying to find it. There is a book that talks about downtime activities, and you're talking about like, Fox, you were talking about like training to be able to do feats and stuff like that, and that is something that we do with our DCC game. Like one of my players had asked me for his halfling. Like, halflings are kind of like rogues in a way, thieves, right? They call them thieves in DCC, but you know, they are they're built to be a little bit, you know, stealthy. They're small or quick-footed, and they can climb and stuff like that. And so it was like, you know, they didn't have a thief in the party, and so the halfling was kind of filling that role as well. And it was like, can my halfling spend, you know, as in DCC, it's like, oh, you know, recovery is long and tedious, and so it's like, okay, well, while we're in town, you know, healing back up, can, you know, she spend so many days? Her name was Felony. Sorry, I always thought that was funny.
That was a great pun.
No, I know. I know. That's one thing I appreciate about that player, is that he loves dumb dad jokes and puns like I do. So like, we get along great. But you know, and he was like, can she spend time like learning about traps and reading books and like, you know, building them and trying to like, and it's like, yeah, sure, okay. And then I was like, okay, after so many I can't remember the name of the book that I got it out of. Like, there's a downtime day like chart, and it's like, if you want to learn a new skill, it's like 120 downtime days, right? That you have to spend to get a new skill. So she'd have to spend 120 days, which is a long time. I mean, that's basically like 4 months if you do it every single day, learning a new skill.
Yeah, I like that method a lot better. I wish I'd known that method before I implemented the one I did, because I think just have them roll a D100.
For something like Feats, which is like I mean, something like sharpshooter, you're talking about years of aim practice, and you know, I mean, that's something it would take, in my opinion, I would put it at a year if you wanted to earn a feat during your downtime, because like,
during play, 100%. That would take forever. Yeah.
I mean, you gotta think like most people train with guns to be like snipers for years, you know, to just simulate that. I'm not trying to bring in like actual real world stuff, but you gotta think about they do that.
It also brings into consideration like with what the feat is like I mean, with sharpshooter and spell sniper too. they ignore half and 3/4 cover.
That's what I'm saying.
So it's like
being able to pull off that shot.
You bending the bullet like in Wanted. Like you're curving the bullet. Curve the bullet.
I mean, Keanu Reeves, like, you know, for John Wick, think about the kind of training like
Good
somebody
Lord.
like John Wick would have had to done in martial arts and, you know, guns, you know, being a shooter like that. It would take them years. It's the same thing for the characters in my mind. Like, it should
100%.
take
Oh,
you
100%.
it shouldn't take you 30 days of downtime to earn a feat, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I wish I could remember the name of that book.
Well, if you figure it out, send it to me, and I'll use that next time I run a game.
I can ask
Mm-mm.
I can ask my old DM at the Keep, and he could tell me what it is because he's the one that introduced me to it. That we used it in his campaign. Because I know another book he used was Strongholds and Followers, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't in there because that's about building a stronghold and having followers. So I think it was another Matt Colville book. I'm pretty sure because he uses a lot of Colville stuff. He's got great stuff. If you're looking for
Okay.
5e stuff, and you're not looking at Matt Colville stuff, I don't know where you're looking.
D&D Beyond. All right.
Don't
does
look
anybody
there.
else
That
have
doesn't
any-
have Matt Colville stuff.
I'm sure it does.
You said if,
because-
I'm
if
sure
you're
it
not
does
looking
illegally.
there,
Yeah.
Yeah,
if you're not looking there, I don't know where you're
illegally.
looking. They're on D&D Beyond, Erica. That's where they're at.
Yeah,
That's where they're looking for all their stuff.
No, don't look there. Look at Colville. He's cool.
Well, does anybody have anything else to say on this one?
No.
You
All
can
right.
give Downtown Days as a reward. That was the last thing I was going to say.
All right, well, we'll go on to the last topic, which is mine. And mine kind of goes to Fox's topic in the beginning. Mine is what makes an NPC epic. Not really like as in depth as like a big bad, because like obviously there's not like lore written about your NPCs and they're not like a villainous mastermind. They could be your big bad. You never know. But my kind of thing was like, you know, what makes them epic and kind of memorable to you? What are the ones that like you like remember of like NPC wise? Like I stop it.
Say anything. I'm thinking. My face does this.
So
That's
there
just your
was
face.
there
It's
was
just my
one
face.
there was a one NPC that I
threw you off. I'm sorry.
you did throw me off, so I don't remember her name,
I'm
but
so
I remember her description. I literally remember everything that this NPC did. She was a little halfling and she made clothes all in this ugly ass stripes. And she
Dots?
and polka dots.
Polka dots. She
It
only
was
wants
polka dots. It was polka dots.
Dottie.
Yes, okay, that's what I was like. I wasn't sure that was her name, but like
Yep, that's Dottie.
legit was just an NPC that are like we just like snatched onto. Unfortunately, Dottie was in an unfortunate
Party.
head exploding
Dottie didn't make
accident, and sadly did not make it. But that was like one of the NPCs. Like it wasn't as like obviously she wasn't like a huge part in the campaign because like she was in one town. She was a big part in the beginning, but she was one that I just like remembered, and I was like, that damn dressmaker. And I remember whenever we had a party to go to, and it was like, well, find outfits, and it was like, well, it has to be polka dots though. I can't make anything that doesn't have polka dots.
It's her brand.
And she lived that brand to the very end as she polka dotted her studio.
Damn.
But I feel like having like a character that was interesting. I also remember Amethyst from that game as well. She was a bard. My first character was a bard, and it was kind of like we had a battle of the band situation going on, and my character was totally gonna beat her ass. But sadly, that I don't think it ever came to fruition of what happened with that. But like, there's just certain, like, I guess, NPCs that I just always kind of like remember. I remember some from yours, Fox's, like Mia, the dual personality tabaxi, like I just kind of like what like makes them like memorable to you, because mine is like the personality, the way that they're like described, how often like they connect with the party? Do they have a reason? Like, why are they speaking to us? Like, why did we come to them? Why do we keep going back? So I don't know. I was like, this topic, I was like, I saw Epic and I was like, oh yeah, I kind of want to talk about NPCs. So also, like, you could do like a store. Like, we have like one in our Drakenheim game now. I'm always gonna remember because apparently he looks like the Duke from Resident Evil. And so it's like, and he's my magic daddy. So, you know.
Yes, and every time we go to that town, you have to go visit Magic Daddy.
I do, because Magic Daddy always has new magic things.
I think, in my opinion, what makes an NPC epic is partly on the dungeon master and partly, I think it's a combined thing. Like, the players decide they like this NPC and it's like, okay, cool. Then I have to match them. Like, I know they have latched on to Doug. We'll call him Doug, because that's like the, like, whatever, catch-all, right? For some male NPC that you don't have anything about. You got Doug. And it's like, they really like Doug. Why? I don't know, but they like Doug. So who is Doug? And I think that if you as a dungeon master are willing to give Doug a personality and role play with the players, then I think that's part of the epicness. Like, right? Like, Dottie was like willing to make them clothes for a gala. She went to dinner with them. She danced the night away. She even helped with their spying.
Assassination
And exactly, and she gave alibis for them. Even like she didn't mean to become part of their group. She was just a dressmaker that I made. And it was like she was there to make clothes, and they were going to a gala. Cool, they need clothes, so they went to her. And and so I think if you present Doug, and Doug has no personality, he has no quirks, he's just this blank slate, can be boring to interact with as a player. They're not going to fall in love with Doug unless there's something about Doug that's special. So why is Doug special, right? It's one of those things that, like, one of my favorite NPCs that I've ever interacted with was when I was at a con. I'm pretty sure it was a GUI Cube game. I think I think Sparks, you played with me in that game. And I don't even think it was an NPC. I think it was the big bad, if I remember right. He had a French accent.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
So it was the big bad, wasn't it?
I think it was one. Yeah.
He started off as just an NPC, and then he became the big bad. Very much what we're talking about. But the reason why he was so awesome is because, like, in the beginning when he was an NPC, he had an accent, which not all voice actors. I understand if you can't do accents. Like, I get it. Trust me. I cannot do accents. I can't do booming male voices. Like, it's hard for me to get out of my southernness, right? But the thing is the quips. He was witty. He threw quips at us, and he would do it from afar for no reason. We were just
literally
like,
no rhyme
we were in the middle
or
of the
reason.
fight, and he's on a balcony screaming at us, talking about how we suck and all this stuff. And it's like, why do you even care? And then the next thing we know, it's because, like, he's on the rooftop and he's the big bad and he's throwing bombs down at us. And it went from he's just this annoyance little thing, but he had all this personality. And I think if you can give your NPCs personality, then that's what will make them epic. In my opinion.
Agreed. And similarly to you, Erica, I think you should really flesh them out. Like, when you're making the NPC, consider it at least enough to make it a real character. Unless you're just using it as, like, maybe a random shopkeep you didn't expect them to even see that one day. But even those shopkeeps can be memorable. Because I put one in my world that one of my players absolutely loves, and they make it a point to visit this shopkeep every time that they're in that town. And what made that shopkeep different was that shopkeep was mute. I made her a kenku. and she communicated with sign language. Nobody else in the party took the time to figure out that she just can't talk and try to communicate with her, but the one person did, and now that's like their bestie. So on that note, you also never know what the players are going to attach to, because that was only meant to be a just fun little Easter egg random shopkeeper. And now that player has spent some of their downtime even just to learn sign language to go and have their character be friends with that person. Other things, like you said, silly NPCs. They can be some of the funnest ever. One of my favorite NPCs in any game was just a crazy old man who randomly helped or randomly hindered, and you never knew which one he was going to do because he was literally crazy. Or even go ahead. No,
Sorry.
go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go.
No, you go on that note.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was just gonna say, like, there's an NPC idea that, like, I was watching Hercules the other night, and I'm pretty sure, like, it's in Hercules, it's in probably, like, Hunchback of Notre Dame or Dom or whatever, however you say it properly. You know what I mean? The coat guy, right? Like, there's always some coat guy that walks around. No, a merchant, right? Who has the coat, and there's always like he's shady, right? He's selling
the shady coat guy, yeah.
Yeah, shady, and he flashes, like, he opens it, of course he's covered, like, you know, unless you want to run that kind of game. But which, you know, whatever you do you. But you know, he opens up his coat and he's got watches upon watches, and it's like, okay, well, imagine if he could teleport. And I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, imagine if that character he can teleport. He actually has access to a teleportation circle somehow, and he teleports around your world. And like, you roll for it, right? And somehow, some way, he's always in a town about this. You know, your players just run across him, and he's there, and he's like, "Hey, I got new goods," and it's something different every time they see him. You know what I mean? It's just like looking for. And when I watch TV, and there's a small character like that guy, like, everybody knows that guy. He has no role of significance in those movies, but he has characteristics that make him rememberable. He's there for maybe even a minute in a movie, but why does he stand out? You know, trying to figure out those kind of things in movies, TVs, video games, even like, you know, Sparks, you were talking about, like, the shopkeep. You interact with the shopkeep in Resident Evil, you know, multiple times, but everybody knows what you're talking about when you talk about the shopkeeper in Resident Evil. In that
Duke,
game.
and then the merchant in Resident Evil 4, yeah.
There you go. You just, you know, that's the way I like to think about it. It's like, okay, whether you have, like, a list, sometimes I'll make, like, sometimes when I'm working on a list right now for my DCC game, because I don't know where they're going to go. We're doing a hex crawl. I don't know what city who they're going to end up talking to. It's all random. And so, like, I have a list of, like, ideas for NPCs that they could come across. They might not ever come across. And if I use them in this place, now they're there. And so, like, if you can come up with maybe, like, 15 people that are funny, that have a really good personality, that you can kind of move them around the world, you know, like that. If you have something accessible in your world, like teleportation, you know, circles that they could use. I think it's kind of fun if you kind of, like, why is this person always around us? Maybe they're following you. Well, why are they following you? I didn't mean to cut you off, Ox. If I did, I'm sorry.
You're good. So I was just gonna elaborate on when you give your characters the backstory and you kind of make them like a real character, that also makes them memorable, because then, especially if they're going to be a major part of your campaign, the players are going to, one, enjoy learning the lore about them for the most part. I have one player who vehemently just loves to dig up lore about literally everything. Doesn't matter what it is. Oh, you farted 5 minutes ago? Cool, I love that lore. And it's not to that extent, but that is just the extremist thing I could think of off the top of my head.
They use legend lore for everything.
Exactly. Well, they would if
Good
they had
Lord.
spells. But a great example of an NPC like that I can think of was actually one from a campaign I was in a few years ago. This NPC was a stoic dude who didn't really talk. He was kind of quiet, but if you took the time and you get to know him and you got to talk to him, you'd learn that he had a really sad backstory. He had a curse which caused him to kill his brother. He got teleported away from his family. He didn't know what was going on, and he was really worried about them. And eventually, interacting with him, the party got close to him. He got close to us, and we were all absolutely devastated when said NPC got killed. To the point that myself and another player were in real tears because we had grown attached to this character because we learned his story, because the DM took the time to flesh him out. So even if you don't know that your players are going to attach to that NPC, if they're going to be around, flesh them out. I promise you won't regret it.
I have like I don't even know why maybe it's just what he says. It's an NPC that was so, I mean, like, we're talking about all this stuff, like how to make them epic and stuff, but it's one of those things that, like, I don't know if this NPC even exists in the Scarlet Citadel by Cobalt Press. Or if my DM just put him in there because he wanted to mess with us. But eventually, if you go deep enough into the Citadel, there's an NPC you come across, and this is not a spoiler. He just stands there, and all he says is one thing, and I don't know if we never figured out how to interact with him, or what it means, or what. But, like, we spent so much time trying to figure out what this meant. He only would say he would ask you a question. It's the same question every time you interact with him. How deep have you been? And me and the people who played in that game together still say that to each other randomly. Because every time we would try to interact with the NPC, all he would say is that. We never figured out what it meant, how to get him to say anything else, anything about him as a character or backstory. Nothing. We got nothing. It was just, how deep have you been? And I'm just like, what the fuck? And it's one of those things that, like, we still talk about it. I'm bringing it up now. Like, I'm pretty sure Sparks heard me say that when we were at GaryCon at least once or twice. Yeah, if you know what the deal is behind that NPC in the Scarlet Citadel, will you let me know? Hit me up. Find me on social media. Please let me know. I want to know. I really do. I don't want to buy it enough to know because I already played it. I tried to get the DM to tell me after the game, but he wouldn't tell me. So
Yeah. Well, you should have just answered.
Do you want to get kicked out of the room, Zach?
well, I
Fistful.
did. Dude, we said a lot. We said a lot to that NPC. You want to talk about when you're sitting at a table with me and the three people I was sitting at a table with, when somebody looks at you and says, how deep have you been? Things were said. You can use your imagination on the kind of things that were answered.
Very deep.
Yeah.
Well,
Mhm.
does anybody
Balls
else have
deep.
anything to say about NPCs?
How deep have you been?
Very, very deep. I don't even fucking say it. I already
I
know.
did.
I saw your
I already
lips
did.
move.
I've said it twice.
I saw your lips move, and I know exactly what it was saying.
I said
I
it
don't know.
twice.
I missed it. I'm sorry.
But
Tell me later when we're not recording.
But all right, well, I guess that's it. Thanks so much for listening. You know, if you have any ideas on what makes big bads epic, or even NPCs, or best feats, boons, and buffs you can give to a player, or what you use as a player, you should totally leave those in the comments. Yeah, how deep have you been? I guess that's it.
Deep
So,
enough.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Good night.
Hey, travelers, thank you so much for watching this episode of Dice and Dish. We really hope that you enjoyed it. And make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube channel, and to subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast network that you listen to it on. Our next episode is going to be posted on May 10th. And just some exciting news that's going to be happening here in the next month or so. We're actually going to be starting a new kind of series for the podcast where we're going to be playing basically one-shots of different systems. So be on the lookout for that. That first episode for the one-shot is going to be coming out on May 24th, and it will be a 5th edition one-shot ran by Foxfire. So make sure that you stick around for that, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye!